Hello, my name is Colin, and this is going to be my putt-putt boat tutorial. The second item you're going to need for this tutorial is an undented pop can. The third item you're going to need for this tutorial is a pair of scissors. For your first step on the putt-putt boat tutorial, you're going to have to go to the link that I put in the description below to sciencetoymaker.org and print out the boiler pattern sheet. The fourth item you're going to need for this tutorial is a roll of masking tape. The fifth requirement for this tutorial will be a sharp edge or surface like this. You can't use a rounded surface like this. You have to have a sharp surface. The sixth thing you will need for this tutorial is a flat metric ruler. The seventh thing that you will need for this tutorial is a flat surface. The eighth thing you're going to need for this tutorial is a flexible straw with this bendy part at about the top of it. The ninth thing you're going to need for this tutorial is a 2-set epoxy. So the 10th thing that you're going to need for this tutorial is some place that you can hold water in. The 11th thing you're going to need for this tutorial is some cardboard. This is optional because if you make a simple boat design, you're probably not going to need cardboard. You're only going to need styrofoam. The 12th thing you're going to need for this putt-putt boat is a low temperature hot glue gun. The 13th thing you will need for this tutorial is some birthday candles. The 14th thing that you will need for this tutorial is some aluminum foil. The 15th thing you're going to need for this tutorial is pennies. You probably don't need this many pennies, only about 4 to 6 pennies. The 16th thing that you will need for this tutorial, which is also optional, is a half-gallon carton of like milk or juice. The 17th thing that you may or may not need, depending on if you do the simple design for the boat or the more advanced design, will be the stapler. And the 18th is going to be a marker of some sort. You also need a razor blade of some sort, whether it be a box cutter or some kind of X-Acto knife. So the first step to making the putt-putt boat is you take your aluminum can and you use the razor blade to start cutting at the rim of the can. And once you've made a cut, you can use scissors to cut the rest of the way around. Once you've cut the rest of the way around, you look for this mark where the can was sealed and cut all the way down to the lower rim on the can, and then cut the rest of the way around the lower rim of the can with the scissors as well until you get a flat piece of metal, which I'm going to show you in the next slide. Now that you've finished, you should have a big sheet of metal like this after you've cut it out. But on the outside, if you've used the razor blade, it's a little bit of an uneven cut on the end. So what you can do is, I don't know if you can see the line or not, but cut about 1 centimeter off from the top of that part that you cut with the razor blade with the scissors to make it even. So this is what I got after getting the clean cut. You see there's no jagged edges at all. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this over like so until both ends are even, but not too even to where you can see kind of a little bit of silver showing from the inside of the can. Then you want to fold just a little bit to make a mark, but not too much to affect the steps later on. So now that you've done that bend, you should have something that looks like this. Now of course, to keep it in place while you're flattening it, you're going to line up the silver again and you're going to use tape to keep it in place like so. Now after you've done that, you need a flat surface, so I'm using my kitchen counter, and a solid flat object. We're using a metric ruler, and you get this flattened down and you put it on the edge and you just kind of give it a little hit. Nothing too much though, because if you hit it too hard you might end up cracking it. Now that you've completed the last step, which was taping this together and hitting against a flat surface to create this bend, you're going to grab your boiler pattern sheet that you printed out earlier, and you are going to rough cut your boiler pattern out and make sure that it is however long it says it's supposed to be. And then you're going to put it on here, and you're going to put 2 tape donuts on both sides of your can or engine, and put the boiler pattern flat across this. So after you put your boiler pattern on your engine, you're going to cut across these solid black lines with scissors. Now make sure you don't cut on the dashed lines, because if you do, you're going to have to start over again. And also make sure that your cuts are straight and don't swerve off, because as you cut, the metal is going to start to push against the scissors while you're cutting. So now that you've cut out your pattern, you're going to line up your dashed line on your boiler pattern with the edge that you're going to fold on, the sharp edge, and then you're going to use tape to keep the boiler pattern in place. And once you do that, you're going to bend your edge over, and then you're going to do the same thing with the other side. Now after you've folded over your sharp edge, it's not going to be folded over all the way, so you can use something like a credit card, debit card, or even like, you know, some kind of card similar to this to fold the edges over even more. So you would line it up with the center, and you would take your edge here and fold it over like this, like so, all the way across. Stays the same all the way down. Kind of time. And after that, you're going to take your metric ruler again, or whatever you're using to flatten, and you're going to line it up, and you're going to just kind of hit it a couple of times. Oh. Alright, now that I've done a better job of folding that over, at this point you can take the paper and the tape off right now. So I'm going to go ahead and take the initiative to do that really quickly. It doesn't matter if you're going to get all that stuff on. It's not going to. Once you've gotten all of your tape off, like so, you're going to take your ruler, like I had mentioned before, and you're going to line it up, and you're just going to, again, lightly tap it. Make sure this thing is flat as can be. Now you want to move to the other side and do the same thing. Maybe try the other side a couple more times. I think that's about good. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get 2 straws at the same length as each other. Make sure they're like exactly the same. And you're going to slightly open that part with the silver, and you're going to bend the nose of the straw. Just kind of fit it in there. And you're going to put the straw all the way in until you can't push it any farther, but don't keep trying to push it in once it doesn't go any farther, otherwise you might end up damaging the inside of the engine. Now you're going to put in another straw side by side. So you're going to do the same thing. It's going to be a little bit easier because you got the first one in already. So you want to also make sure that the bendy side is coming out and that the longer end is going inside of the engine. Like that. After you've put the 2 straws in, you're going to grab a 3rd straw. Now instead of putting the bendy part outwards and having the longer end go in, you're going to flip it around and have the shorter end going in. Now when you do this, you're going to do the same as the other ones, and it's going to be a little difficult to squeeze this in between the other 2, but once you get it in there, you can push it in, and you want to leave this 3rd straw about this far away from the edge. So now that you have your 3rd straw in, you're going to get a thin piece of cardboard that your engine will fit on, but you'll still have enough room to put your epoxy on. You make 2 like tape donuts, and you put them on each end of the engine once again. And once you've done that, you put it on the corner of this piece of cardboard. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it would be nice to be aligned correctly. And that's it. So before you start doing the epoxy, you need to make sure, 1, that you saved some metal from the first step. Now, I know I had forgotten to mention, but after you cut out your design, you need to save a piece of metal about this big so that it fits in between these pieces of metal. Now, before you do epoxy, you need to make sure that this piece fits through this metal. Now, if you can get it all the way back and forth like so, and you can just start from the beginning and go all the way back on both sides, then you're ready to go. Now, when you're doing the epoxy, you can kind of just, if you go like this, it helps get the epoxy inside of those cracks and seal it the first time around so you don't have to go through so many times and do it over and over again. So now what you're going to do is you're going to use the two-part epoxy on the paper and you're going to mix the two together, and then you're going to use something like this to spread a coat of epoxy over these two sides of the motor. So after you've done all of your epoxy, you take out all three of the straws and you take two of them and measure 1.5 inches out and cut at 1.5 inches. Now, when you take them out, you're going to put them back in backwards like this and leave some room so that once you epoxy them back in, you have room between the bendy part and your engine. So after you seal the engine with epoxy, you're going to want to get a glass of water and pressure test the engine to see if there's any leaks. If there are leaks, you're going to want to reseal it with epoxy. So now what you're going to do is you're going to tape this bend pattern onto a piece of cardboard. You could use a cereal box. We're going to use this soda can holder. And once you cut it out and you fold these together, it's going to look something like this. Once you have your cardboard cut out, you're going to fit your engine to it and tape it down, and then use your low-watt glue gun to glue the bendy parts. So now that I'm done making my glue on the bendy part here, I'm going to make a holder for a little birthday candle that I have out of aluminum foil. And then I'm going to fill up an area with water like the sink, and I'm going to first I'm going to fill the motor with water and shake it back and forth like this to get the water inside the engine. And then I'm going to submerge the engine and put the flame under it to see if it pops and try and find the right place.
For the next step, you need to go to sciencetoymaker.com and find the foam pattern, and then when you print this out, you put it on top of a piece of foam paper or whatever foam, and then cut it out.
After you've cut out the foam, you fit the engine into the foam and use something like rubber bands to hold the engine in place. It's optional to add pennies to your boat to make it heavier and faster. After you've added your pennies and rubber bands, you need to get a piece of your tin foil and your candle and put it under one of the rubber bands and line it up with the engine where you found the good spot of the engine, and then put it in the water. And this is the end result.